Right. So, as far as our business analysis practical understanding in context to the techno-functional role as a business analyst when we are working on nowadays, it's always important for us to have some visualization even. So we normally prepare different charts like something like use cases, sequences, collaboration, right? So all that we discussed. In process of understanding, so today I'm going to show an example, especially for supply chain process. I'm taking an example of supply chain because as far as our SCM training expertise, training learning is concerned, that I already explained you about the supply chain process, right? So effectiveness, inventory, all that part. So how practically this can visualized? So a flow diagram is always important. So we need to understand about the flow process. In understanding about the flow process, today I'm going to explain you about how to prepare a flow diagram for a supply chain process. So that this visualization is majorly useful when we document something or when we are delivering some information, requirements information to the technical team. So this explanation, visualization of the explanation about the supply chain process will be more effective so that whatever the required business logic they want to write, everything will be written by them. Now, this is what generally the process is. So, first of all, for example, mm, we have received an order. Okay, receiving an order is first something, right? So, from the initial point of view, I'm saying that receiving an order is the first one. We want to receive the order. So, whenever we receive the order, first of all, we need to verify and validate to what extent the information that we have received is right or not, right? So that we have to verify and validate. That is essentially required. So first we need to mention, okay? So we need to mention or we need to specify whether it is whether the order is valid or not, right? So that we need to verify first. That is important. So verification, if else condition, anyway, right? So there are two different things, if else conditions and all. So if the order is not valid, okay, so what we have to do, we need to verify and we need to explain this to the customer. We need to notify to the customer. If it is no, okay, so if it is no, we need to notify this to the customer. This is something we need to do. So if else conditions applies here, okay. The flow process, we have received an order. Assume that the order is not valid, okay. The order what we have received is not valid, for example. Okay, for example, if it is no, okay, no, right? So we have to notify this to the customer. This is option number one. So what is option number two? If it is valid, okay, so valid, what process that are to be followed, so that we need to know. So for that, what is important, we need to check the inventory first. Whenever we have received an order, we need to check the inventory. So next, checking the inventory, okay. Checking the inventory is something which normally we do. We need to check the inventory. Checking the inventory is important. So if it is yes, I mean to say that, okay. If order is valid, if order is valid, right? Just give me a minute. Yeah. If order is valid, check the inventory. This is the next option. Okay. So now when we want to check the inventory, especially whenever we are going to check the inventory and all, so before we are processing the order, whatever the order that we have received, if you want to process this, it's important for us to see whether the inventory is sufficient or not. So we need to see whether the inventory is sufficient for us to process it or not. Right, so that is something which we need to do. Inventory is sufficient or not, so that we need to verify. because verification and validation, we need to verify whether we need to check, not rather than verify. I always say that we need to check whether the order is sufficient or whether the inventory is sufficient or not. Now assume that, yeah, assume that, for example, when we are checking the inventory, assume that there is no inventory is available now. Okay, what we can do, we can simply order from the supplier. So we need to order from the supplier. So we need to order from the supplier here. That is one thing. Okay. Next, we need to receive the shipment. Receiving the shipment. Once we have received the shipment over here, okay, once we have received the shipment here, based upon the shipment that we have received and all, we need to pick and pack the items. That's important. Pick and pack the items. Finally, we need to ship the order. Finally, we need to ship the order. Okay, we need to ship the order. Right, so assume that if the inventory is not sufficient, I mean to say, finally we need to ship the order by ordering to the supplier. If it is no, if it is no, okay, so order will be uh, received, shipment received, pick and pack the items, shipment in the order, right? So this is for if the inventory is not sufficient. Okay, now if the inventory is sufficient, because I already mentioned there are two conditions: if condition followed by else condition and all that, right? Let's assume that the shipment is order is ready. Okay, so what we can do, we can pack items. Next, ship the order. We can pack items and ship the order. When it is yes, okay, this is no. So this is where generally the supply chain process is. Means it's not only by way of explaining this, because to explain and as well as people to understand about some kind of logics, it is essentially required for us to explain through a diagrammatical representation. So diagrammatical representation give you a detailed understanding, right? So um, how the logic can be implemented and all. This is how generally a flow charts, an example in context to the supply chain process is concerned, I have explained you. So this is how generally we explain, and we can create, right? We can export it is also, right? So you can export this diagram as uh, PNG file, okay, right? So whatever the PNG file that you have, this thing you can write, right? So for example, um, flow chart of SCM, for example, okay, right? So wherein you have saved it. Assume that this is a document, okay? This is a Word document where we need to copy here. So here we need to copy, for example. Okay. So what we can do, we can simply go there. Copy it, paste it in the Word document. So that diagram you can copy. You can write up here. If you want, you can make a word chart. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So this is how generally the visualization is something which normally we have to do. This is how visualization is always important from the role of a business analyst, from the part of technical knowledge, understanding about practical knowledge. So this is how generally we need to prepare the charts on that.